Good evening, everyone. I'm Lisa Gonzalez, and joining me is El Paisano. Glad that you guys are all checking in with us and watching our video. We're going to talk about some very important topics today. The importance of our freedom of speech, for one. This is our first video. We'll be having a special guest coming on soon, Michelle Pena. We're going to talk about some of the issues that are coming up this election, along with how it's affecting our freedom of speech. I think Michelle is ready to come in, so I will go ahead and let her in. Jesse, anything you want to start us off with?
Yeah. So I'd like to read the First Amendment. Since we didn't start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, I'll start off with the First Amendment. And what we're going to be talking about, I'll read that First Amendment to the Constitution. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Hey, Chantal, how are you doing?
Doing, Mom.
Okay. Now, did you give Gilbert the address, Lisa? Once before we start?
And I'll do it right now. Oh no, I did send it to everybody at the same time.
Okay.
You should have it.
So what we have today is very important. Did you? I didn't catch in your introduction. Did you talk about that freedom of speech is very big in the today's news?
Not specifically today's news, but with the election cycle that we have coming in, it is going to be a big issue.
I think it's a big issue. And if you could give me a few minutes, let me find the news article that I was talking about. But it was earlier in the day. It came over the wire, and it's from the World Economic Forum. And do you know who was speaking there? Let's see if I can find this. It wasn't Klaus Schwab this time. It's always that guy, that Klaus Schwab. He looks like those old 1960s movies, where I like chaos and I will destroy the nations. But this time it wasn't one of them European guys. It was an actual American. Do you know who it is?
No.
He was a senator in the United States Senate, and he was also going to be our president. He almost beat George W. Bush. I think it was in 2004, John Kerry. And look at what he says in the World Economic Forum. John Kerry derides First Amendment as major roadblock to government being able to hammer dissent out of existence. It says, during the Sustainable Development Impact meeting held by the World Economic Forum, John Kerry brazenly admitted that the First Amendment is a threat to government power. During the discussion, Kerry stated that free speech, particularly on social media, threatens democracies by inhibiting the government's ability to manufacture a consensus through the control of information. I think the dislike and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. So he doesn't like social media. So that encompasses what me and you are talking about right now. Everybody in our listening audience, all the kids who have TikTok, he's talking about everybody. And I think that's what people don't understand. Everybody lives in a gated community of the brain. They think it's not what John Kerry is talking about. It's not going to affect them. It's going to affect Mark Zuckerberg. It's going to affect Elon Musk. But I'll still have my TikTok. I'll still have my social media. I'll still have my contact, my friends. This guy's talking about eliminating everything. Let me go on. It's just growing and growing and growing. And that's part of our problem, particularly in democracies. In terms of building consensus around any issue, it's really hard to govern today. No shit, Sherlock. It's always been hard to govern. And this guy went to college. Can you believe that? He goes on to describe how gatekeeping information has become increasingly difficult due to the wide array of information providers online that have been made easily accessible via the internet. So we'll just stop right there and we can address it later because there's so much to unpackage. Do you get what he's saying? What do you think? He's saying that we have too much freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm. Well, they want to control everything, and that's one of the ways of doing it.
Yeah, and that's the central tenet of communism: the centralized control, distribution of information, communication.
Right, and right now, every kid, every person with their phones and social media is a journalist, independent journalist, if you can think about it. So you can't control everybody.
Yeah, and if you watch the news article, his speech, he talks about what you just said. They're angry. There's too much. In other words, they believe in freedom of speech for themselves in the World Economic Forum, but not for you and I, the American citizens. Not for you and I. For them, the elites, the World Economic Forum. And let me read the next paragraph. The referees. Now check this out. The referees we used to have to determine what a fact and what isn't a fact. It's kind of been eviscerated to a certain degree. So, in other words, what Kerry's saying here is, tell Michelle to silence them. And so what happens is, read that again. The referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact, it's kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. So in the old days, he's crying because in the old days, he had NBC News. He had ABC News. He had CBS. He had the New York Times and everybody went to those. And they could control 5 or 6 major outlets. They could control the radio. They could control the newspapers. They can control. But now there's information everywhere. And he hates that. He hates that with a passion. Now, a lot of times, how does that affect America and Arizona? A lot of the times when we talk to our liberal brothers and sisters, they say, all the Republicans and the Democrats are the same. They're all the same. No. We have jerks on the Republican Party, too, like John McCain and what's that other guy? Mitt Romney. But even the worst Republicans we have ever had weren't as bad as this. John Kerry, talking about the elimination, too much freedom of speech. Can you believe that? Your dad went to Vietnam in what year?
65. He was drafted in 65.
What do you think he would say? If, hey, you know what, Ray, you're going to go over there and sacrifice so that your daughters can shut up.
Well, he didn't even have a choice to speak up and say, I can't go. I have flat feet and I have diabetes. They still took him. Yeah. Said anybody that had a Latin or Hispanic last name was on that list to go.
Exactly. So what you have here is you have this guy who is a leader of our Democrat Party here in the United States going to the World Economic Forum in Europe and saying that one of the problems with global governance is that in America, we have this thing called freedom of speech, the First Amendment. Can you believe how grotesque that is? I mean, I find that appalling. Do you have any comment on it, Michelle or Lisa?
Michelle, do you have any?
Yeah.
No, it is appalling. It's to the point now that as long as it's something that is good for their agenda, they're good with it. But don't let it be something that's not according to their agenda. You can forget about speaking up. They'll do anything to bring you down and to stop you.
Yeah, exactly. And he cries about the old days. He cries about the old days. So let me just read it to you. Maybe somebody has a comment. It is interesting to note that Kerry ended with a statement, to a certain degree, could this have been the paragraph before it. He calls them the referees. We used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact. It's kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. So I talked a little bit about the referees, but I would like to talk about it more. The referees we used to have. Do you know what he's saying?
No, explain it to me.
Well, you explained it to me already. The control. He's talking about the control. The Constitution does not have the word referee in it. He's interjecting it. He's decrying the days where the deep state or members of the elite could tell the newspapers what to print. They could tell the New York Times what to print or what not to print. They had control over it. They're crying because they don't control this podcast. They don't control Elon Musk. They don't control Joe Rogan. They didn't control Rush Limbaugh. They didn't control a lot of people. And they're mad and angry about that. They want to control us like they control the New York Times. They want to have referees like they have it in the LA Times, like they have it in the Arizona Republic. For example, half of our state, do you think half of our state trusts anything that comes out of the Arizona Republic?
They did at one time.
They
I
did.
remember. I remember when you would make comments that that's the newspaper you read, and you were criticized. Well, it's too biased. You know, it was too conservative. But now it's totally the opposite.
Yeah, it's a liberal, it's a rag. So liberal newspaper. So it's controlled by John Kerry's people, the elite. And so he says, the referees we used to have. See, so he's admitting, it's a slip of the tongue here. He's admitting that they used to control the media, the means of communication. And with the internet comes a lot of freedom, a freedom of speech. And they don't like that. They get very nervous about that.
Right.
Hey, look, we have a visitor. We have a visitor here.
Hey, Gilbert's got to explain that.
Now, he's
Ape.
from,
What's
well,
the
he's
deal with
from-
the ape?
Oh my God, it's like 50, that's like about 15 years old. I bought the ape and the picture, and I've just always kept it. I liked it. He has a really nice suit, you know. It's
Yeah, he does.
Now, I have a question. Gilbert, you're from Phoenix. You're in Phoenix. Is the Arizona Republic the newspaper of record in our state?
yeah.
Okay. Now, when we read this article about John F. Kerry and the World Economic Forum, the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact, it's kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. What comment do you have on that? Do you think he's talking about the referees they have implanted in the newspapers, in the mainstream media?
Well, I think it's also a diversion because the Constitution doesn't talk about a referee. It talks about the freedom of the press, and nowhere in the Constitution does it say that you need to have a permit to be a member of the press.
Right.
And so these guys are trying to change the rules, and this is what communists do. They always play with the words. So they're interjecting words that don't exist in the like in the Constitution, and they're trying to add it, and in doing so, they're trying to confuse people. So by adding the word referee into his argument, he's trying to dumb down the people and make them think that this is some kind of football game or baseball game when it's not.
Yeah, and it's very sad. Let me continue reading. I mean, I when I see this, I get real sad because I really think that our a lot of the voters in our state and people that I talk to, my friends, they think that tomorrow, if we lose freedom of speech, they really don't care as long as they get to watch the Dodgers. They really, as long as they got Facebook or social media or X, or they're gonna go watch X-Men, they're gonna go to the movies. They think if you lose freedom of speech, that's gonna affect you, Jesse. It's gonna affect you, Michelle, Elisa, but it's not gonna affect me. I'm still gonna see Ohtani hit home runs. I'm still gonna go to the park. I'm still gonna drink beer. I'm gonna go to the casino Friday night. And when we try to tell them, no. If we lose freedom of speech here, it's over. OVUR.
Did you play the video where Kerry said all that?
No. I'm reading it. But let me continue reading it. It says, yeah. If you could find the video.
It's right there.
There it is.
Okay. Can you press play?
Dislike of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. And it's part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. It's really hard to govern today. You can't, there's no, the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact have kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. And people go and people self-select where they go for their news or for their information. And then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time in the 45, 50 years I've been involved in this. And there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb
Okay, stop. Can you press pause?
In order to guarantee.
Okay. The reason I was reading it, Gilbert, Gigi, is because did you hear when he talked about people self-select?
Yeah, I wrote that down.
Yeah,
That's
it's a disgusting thing. It's a very disgusting thing that people self-select. Can you imagine the nerve of Americans self-selecting? Can you imagine the nerve? It is a disgusting thing. This is not something that an American should say. This is not what an American thinks. An American wants everybody. When we get in an argument and debate, we don't want to force people. We want them to come to a conclusion of our argument. We want them to self-select. This is a uniquely not in a way an American should think. And I went and did a Google News search of this all over. I did not hear one of our American Democrat brothers and sisters talking against this. I found Greg Gutfeld talking about it. Joe Rogan talks about it. A couple of conservatives talk about it. But I didn't see one Democrat in the entire United States, say something that, hey, John Kerry, tone it down a little bit. You sound like retarded. Not one person.
You may, and I don't know if you mentioned this or not. I'm still learning how to do this streaming thing. So it said that it's a roadblock. I mean, we've had the First Amendment for almost 250 years. We're getting close to 250 years. And now it's becoming a roadblock. That just absolutely makes no sense because it's been perfectly fine for 250 years. Now, all of a sudden,
hey,
Lisa, get rid of it.
Lisa,
it is
Gilbert will speak, but I just want to say one thing.
Okay.
Welcome to the fight.
Okay, because what happens is this: it is a roadblock because if you go back, he used the word "our democracy." You see, that's a play on words. He's making you think our OUR is Lisa's, El Paisanos, is Michelle, that we're all included in the word our democracy. But nowhere in the Constitution does it say democracy. You see, there's two separate. So he's making you think that you're included in the conversation of our democracy. But what he's doing is he's saying that our democracy, or what John Kerry is trying to accomplish outside of the rule of law, is being roadblocked by people like the First Amendment. So he is right. He is being roadblocked by the American people, by the MAGA people, because his democracy can't go forward. And that's what he's doing. He's playing words and he's making you think that you're part of him. Really, you're not part of our.
That's a great, Gilbert. That's great. Let me just feed on Gilbert. So I say, Lisa, welcome to the fight. You're like 50, 60, 70, 20, 80% of the Democrats that I'm talking about.
You know, I was being sarcastic, actually.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah. I thought it was real. But listen, what's happening, the roadblock. Here's an American. He was a senator. You and I and us Americans, we want to conserve the Constitution. We want to conserve our way of life. He wants to progress beyond it. He wants to run in front of the Constitution and have new laws, a global new world order. Mm-hmm. But something that stops the new world order is our freedom of speech, what we're doing here tonight. When people congregate at their churches and they talk, or they go to a carne asada and they talk, they go to the bar and they talk, he doesn't like that. It's a roadblock. So that he's over there meeting with Western European powers in the World Economic Forum, and he's an American over there, but he's acting in the best interest of a new world order, not in the old order that you and I live in.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like he's going over there to get pointers of how they did it in their countries.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. We're just following along with everything that these other countries have now.
Another thing to help you understand the difference of the roadblock is the First Amendment is not a roadblock to the MAGA people or to Donald Trump, but the First Amendment is a roadblock to John Kerry. Do you understand the difference? Mm-hmm. So Donald Trump is on one road and John Kerry's on another road. And the First Amendment only blocks him. It doesn't block people who love America. Mm-hmm. The First Amendment does not block American loving people. It only blocks American hating people.
So and it's become almost like a virus, or I mean, it's just spreading because I'm going to go ahead and bring this up, Jesse, of how they're trying to stop the freedom of speech from one of our close friends here in town. He's putting up information through signs next to some of the people that are running for school board here in our town, and his signs are disappearing, or they're moving, things around so that people don't understand what his signs are representing. So it's happening in all sorts of ways with all sorts of people.
Yeah. Now, the freedom of speech that they're trying to take away, our friend that you're talking about here in Yuma, it's just that could be labeled. That's just politicking at the local level, I think. Yeah, it is. They're trying to stifle his freedom of speech, but it's being done in everything. So what you're describing is it's affecting everybody at every household.
Mm-hmm.
And if John Kerry is successful, it's just going to get worse. We saw it during COVID, how so many of our brothers were just laying down like sheep. Don't go to church. Okay. Don't go to school. Okay.
Well,
And
look,
Don't go to
work. Well, a person who loves America, let's say a Trump supporter, he's not going to go and mess with your friend's sign, because he understands that freedom of speech, the freedom to put those signs up is a two-way street. That if you were to mess with his sign, then he has every right to mess with yours. So it's just respect. The problem with a lot of our friends are on the Democrat aisle, unfortunately, is that they believe in the concept of the ends justify the means, that they have every right to break every law or to violate your First Amendment right if it means the advancement of their political cause. And we don't think that way. We don't think that we have a right to violate any law to advance our agenda. We are law-loving people, and because we're Mexican, we were taught of our great ancestor in Mexico during the Civil War. But when he said, was it Morelos? He goes, no. El derecho al respeto ajeno es la paz. That amongst nation and amongst men, the respect of individual rights is peace. So we respect everybody's signs, and that's why we have peace. But these Democrats, they don't respect other people's private property.
Well, it
And
goes even further than that, Gilbert. It's not even just respect. I mean, there's laws that protect that right to put up your sign as long as you follow certain rules. Your name has to be on it. Your telephone number has to be on it in case you need to be contacted. Even then, even though there's laws protecting this gentleman for having these signs, they don't care. They'll still pull them out. So it's even more than just the respect here.
It goes back to that saying, because that explains the war, because the Morelos said, amongst nations and amongst men, the respect for individual rights is peace. So when you do it backwards, there is no peace right there when you're talking. When somebody goes and moves those signs, gets rid of those signs, it's like a little mini war. They are actually at war with their brother. Why? Because they don't know how to respect the law. They don't know how to respect their brother, their neighbor.
And here's another thing. I'd like to throw a spiritual angle. The law is a spirit. The law is a force. Government is force. The force. It's not something tangible that you could touch, like a person, place. It's a thing. It's something spiritual. For example, when a cop yells, "Stop in the name of the law." What is the name of the law? What is the name? Chloe, Francis, law. It's a spirit. It's a force. And a lot of people in the United States don't have the spirit of law. They don't. And what we learned at church, it was called the hombre de desafuero. Desafuero, remember? The man of lawlessness. Mm-hmm. And so what you have, for example, look at what happened at ASU with Kerry Lake's daughter. She got attacked and they threw that soda at her. Mm-hmm. And some of the commentators who saw it, and Kerry Lake herself said, hey, if this would have been a Democrat's daughter, let's say that would have been Katie Hobbs' daughter, the Arizona Republic would have had every reporter out there. But because it's Kerry Lake's daughter, they could beat her up and nobody will ever say anything about it. because they're a lawless people. They don't have the spirit of law. They don't have the spirit of America. And so when you live in the spirit of law, for example, let's say the police in your town, what's easier to follow, the cartels or a speeder?
The speeder.
So they choose the path of least resistance. The police don't want to work very hard. The governor doesn't want to work real hard. So is it easier to chase? Is it easier to chase the person knocking down the signs, or just ignore it?
Ignore it.
Yes.
And that's and the thing is that these people, these Democrats, are spoiled. Nobody's ever fought against them. They don't get in trouble with the law. They have everything on their side. So when they get the littlest amount of resistance, they go crazy. They throw a tantrum.
Exactly. And look at our local radio stations, for example. When all the citizens call in about a problem, do you ever hear a military person call in? Do you ever hear a sheriff call in? Do you ever hear a police officer? We have a police ball, and we have to contribute to the police this, the first responders of the year, and they have a ball and everything. But do you ever hear them out there fighting for freedom of speech? You ever hear them on the radio on Russ Clark shows talking about freedom of speech?
No.
At the
It's
rally,
rare.
do you ever see policemen?
It's rare, the one that is.
They don't
And-
speak up. But if a communist mayor sends them out to kill Republicans, they'll do it.
And that's
It's all
hard.
about the retirement
They got to
Yeah.
feed their families, but
benefits.
if you can't feed
But
your
the
family
rest of
because
us,
everything,
the rest of us have to do the dirty work. We have to stick our necks out for them.
Well, thank
Oh,
God
yeah.
that there's people like us and close friends of us, and there's a whole movement right now.
But what our
That are
Democrat
doing
brothers
it.
have to understand is that once they take us out, they're next on the chopping block. They're the next one that's going to be served in the evening meal. Look, there was a story out of the UK Guardian. You can look it up. Out of the UK Guardian, if somebody wants to look it up. There was these people in London, in England, were coming back from a trip from France. And in their vehicle, there was a stowaway of illegal aliens. Somehow they got in a big van and they were stowed away. Well, they saw one person and they chased them out. They closed up their van. They didn't know that there was a person still in their van. As they were driving down the street, they heard noises. So what they did, they pulled over, they opened the door, and a illegal alien ran out. And then they called the police. They called their 911, whatever it is over there in England. Later on, they got fined $4,000 for transporting an illegal alien. The gentleman says it would have been better if he wouldn't have called the police. So we're getting to a point where we're losing our freedoms. If we defend our freedoms, we're going to go to jail. So it becomes a nation of lawlessness. El hombre de desafuero, the man of lawlessness.
Well, that happened in Bullhead City too, where today it came out, the U.S. District Court. We got to show this to Maria Cruz, where, hey, hold on a minute. A woman gives food to the homeless in a park,
Yes.
and then they fine her, and they say that she doesn't have a fundamental right. They use that word, and so they're over here arguing the fundamental right. And so what I was going to do is do a video where saying, in 2024, this is where we're at. This is where it's gone crazy. If Jesus Christ came to earth and fed 5,000 people, he would go to jail. They would put him in jail for not having a permit for feeding people. I mean, they would jail Jesus Christ for miraculously feeding 5,000 people. That's where we're at today.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm trying to say is it shows the absurdity of where we're at right now, that common sense is being thrown out the window. We're seeing it every day, a new article. And sometimes you wonder if it has to be done by design. Like, are they prepping everybody to accept the lawlessness, to accept the craziness? I don't, it makes me wonder sometimes.
you become numb to it. They want you to become numb.
That's the word.
Yeah.
There's another word they use with the kids that use video games and the violence. And when they see it, they just become normal to it. There's
Immune?
another word.
Is it immune? No.
Another word.
Hey, did you want to keep playing the Kerry video?
I can
Yeah, go
let
back.
me put it back on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change. Now, obviously, there are some people in our country who are prepared to implement change in other ways. And
so
that's
you're
really
questioning
dangerous.
really if democracy can survive unregulated social media.
I think democracies are very challenged right now and have not proven they can move fast enough or big enough to deal with the challenges that we are facing. And to me, that is part of what this race, this election is all about. Will we break the fever in the United States?
Hey, let me just say, if you could go back a few seconds, look at the way he sits. He doesn't even sit like a man. He doesn't sit like a Christian. He doesn't sit like an American. He doesn't even sit like a man.
To deal with the challenges that.
Well, so what happened is he talks about the end where America is sick, has a fever. He says it, that America has a fever. He's calling America sick. And then he talks about how he doesn't know if the democracies can move fast enough. He's not talking about independent countries. He's talking about all of the people that have been implanted in all the different countries to carry out their democracy. See, he's not talking about the government of the United States. It's already moving forward. Whether we live or die today or tomorrow, the United States is going to keep on moving. It's another day, another morning. It's going to keep on. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about his government, his democracy that is coming from the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, or whatever it is. His agenda, his democracy can't move forward at a fast enough pace. And the other last thing, at the very beginning when you put it back on, he went and insulted you because he said that some of you go get your news from a source that's sick, like a sick source. So he's saying that if you go to the Gateway Pundit, Fox News, InfoWars, Breitbart, or whoever, right, you're sick. And he's questioning your source. But I don't go and question you where you go if you go to CNN or CNN. That's your business. You see, this is the sickness of John Kerry. He really does think it's his business where you should be getting your news from.
Yep. And he uses the communist lingo, misinformation and disinformation. I've noticed a lot of churches are starting to use it. They're parroting this word. But look, I got my Constitution here, and I'm going to read it again. The conventions of a number of states having, at the time of their adopting the Constitution, expressed a desire in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers, that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added and as extending to the ground of public confidence in the government will best ensure the beneficent ends of its institution. Congress shall make no law regarding an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech. ... That's what the Constitution says. John Kerry goes explicitly against the Constitution. And then the Speaker of the House, John Adams, he talks about that at the time of that the Congress was being ratified by the certain states, some of the people said, no, we don't have no confidence in you. You guys have too much power. You hear what John Adams is saying as the Speaker of the House? He's saying the convention of a number of states, there was a fight. Some of the states said, no, hell no, we're not going to sign unless you put these 10 amendments. And one of them was freedom of speech, because we know John Kerry's going to put a pillow over our mouths.
That's why
we know that Katie Hobbs is going to put tape over our mouths. And our brothers and sisters are going to say, no, they're not. No, they're not. We're going to watch the baseball game. We're going to go to the Taylor Swift concert. Nobody's going to take away your freedom of speech. This guy's telling us to our face that he's going to take away our freedom of speech.
That's why
he's telling us.
Yeah, they use the word democracy as a secret, because democracy just means squashing the little guy. In a republic, you actually listen to the little guy.
Correct. Mob rule. But did you see the beautiful thing about the Constitution, the preamble to the Bill of Rights? He says a number of the states, they were saying, wait, we're not going to sign up unless
the small ones.
Yeah.
See, I just wanted to go back to the word that I get from John Kerry in the very beginning when we played it again. He used the word source. So he's a busybody. You know, he wants to decide where. Imagine that. Who says, you know, Michelle, where did you go grocery shopping today? You know, like, I want to know the source of this food. You know, who does that? Who wants to know the source of all of your information? Busybodies. See, this guy wants to control whether you go to Fox News or any other place. And just the arrogance of that. And what he's trying to tell you too is that if he gets his way, he will decide where you get your news. And this is what a lot of the independent news agencies are talking about, like your Breitbart, your Gateway Pundit, Alex Jones, and when what's his name gets out of jail from the War Room, Steve Bannon. They're all going to be talking about this. That this guy is trying to say America cannot get their news from Tucker Carlson. They cannot get their news from Megyn Kelly. He wants to decide what that source is. And that's scary.
Yeah, because he's not allowed to do it. He's not allowed to do it. We, the people, limited his power to do that.
Well, we've already had so much practice. I mean, starting with COVID, we just listened to whatever they said. I mean, now there's only, you know, they want you to go to electric cars, quit using the gas, quit using furnaces. I mean, they've been telling us what to do about everything else, and everybody has just followed, like, you know, sheep to a slaughter. What's one more thing? The speech. You know, it's you've become numb, like we were saying right now. You know, we've always listened. Let's just do this too.
But think of the arrogance. Think of the arrogance that, you know, the Catholic Church doesn't tell its people, do not listen to the Protestants, or you don't go to the University of Arizona and then they say, do not get any information from UCLA. Like, you know, who does this? I'll tell you who. John Kerry does this. Mm-hmm. It would be akin to the Pope telling you not to listen to Joel Osteen. This is what this guy's saying, that he's telling you which source of information is approved by him and his committee. So he's basically like a book burner. He's telling you which books are good and which books shall be burnt, which websites shall be purged. What's the difference between purging a website and burning a book? It's identical. It's just 2024. It's just the names have changed.
Hey, and did you notice at the end of the video? Can you go back to the video? Did you notice that veiled threat, Gilbert, he put there?
Oh, wait.
John Kerry, he did that veiled threat.
Let me try and
anguish to me
at the very end.
Big enough to deal with the challenges that we are facing. And to me, that is part of what this race, this election is all about. Will we break the fever in the United States?
Or a little bit before, like 30 seconds.
Okay. Yeah,
he does a veiled threat right there.
If democracy can survive unregulated social media.
I think democracies are very challenged right now and have not proven they can move fast enough or big enough to deal with the challenges that we are facing. And to me, that is part of what this race, this election is all about. Will we break the fever in the United States?
Did you catch it this time? What were you referring to, Jesse?
Well, right before he started, because wow, this is not a way an American thinks. This is not an American. You know what? And I'm a Mexican American. This guy's a white guy. Went to what do you go, that college where they have the skull and bones? He should know better than that. Americans don't talk that way about America. I would never. I regret that I have but one life. Forgive my country. You don't go to another country and start bad mouthing your country. When I was 2 to 3 years old, my grandma was talking bad about Nixon. I was ready to kick her ass. You know, no, I was gonna go Vietnam on her. Yeah, and I told my dad, take me back home, because I'm gonna whoop grandma. She's talking bad about Nixon. But anyways, you just don't go to another country and talk bad about your country. And that's a true story. My dad's dead. He can't corroborate it, but that's a true story. But anyways, he said right before that, he goes, we have ways of fixing things. And so what he's talking about is corporate censorship or fascism. That's when the corporations start censoring. Like, remember, like Mark Zuckerberg did. He censored everybody. And a lot of our Democrat brothers, they go, there's no censorship, because nothing that they're saying, because they're talking about abortion, they're talking about Taylor Swift, they're talking about the Los Angeles Dodgers, or they're talking about the casino, they're talking about the latest Netflix movie. So of course they're not going to be censored. But anybody who speaks against the system or the limiting the role of government in our lives, the encroaching role, they're going to be censored. And there's millions and millions and millions of Americans that have been censored.
Hey, Jesse, let me ask you something, or Gilbert, maybe all three of you. So do you think we tend to be just a little bit more sensitive about this subject, about our freedom of speech, because of our history being in a cult where everything we did was controlled, even especially as women, everything we said, we had to watch. So, we wouldn't seem like we were not being submissive. Is it affect us differently than the rest of America?
Well, I'll show you I sent you the PDF. You can put it up online, because I talked about this earlier. And no, the Bible's very clear. King Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. We all know that. We've all heard that. There's nothing new under the sun. So if they're going after this grandmother who's feeding homeless in Bullhead City, they're going to go after you. They're going to say what Stalin said: show me the woman and I'll show you the crime. So here's this old lady. She's a grandma. Okay, this is the crime. You see, this is how all governments eventually, if they're unchecked, will lead to a communist takeover. There's nothing new under the sun here. And so this grandmother is you and I. They're going to look at you and they're going to find some reason to arrest you. Maybe you have too many chickens. I don't know. Maybe your neighbor's dog gets out of a leash and he goes into your yard, and they come in and they come and find you. That's what I'm saying. They're arresting grandmothers. They put her in a cop car for feeding a homeless person. Nobody is safe, is what we're saying. Mm-hmm. The Trump supporters know that nobody is safe with John Kerry and Kamala at the helm.
That's crazy. So I haven't read this article. Michelle, had you heard of this? I mean, you're very in tune with everything that's going on in the state. I can't hear you. We can't hear you. Let's see.
This came on the Gateway Pundit today.
Oh. We can't hear you, Michelle.
There. Least. Okay. Well, she gets set up. Mm-hmm. Can I? Now, when he talked about fire, what did John F. Kerry said about fire?
Can't hear us?
No. Hey, Lisa, what did John F. Kerry say about fire?
I don't recall.
It's real important. Watch. Can you put it back on?
Oh, yeah. Second. You want me to put it back about a minute or so?
30 seconds, yeah.
Hang on.
Dislike of and anguish over social, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to win the ground. win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change. Now, obviously, there are some people in our country who are prepared to implement change in other ways. And
So
that's
you're
really
questioning
dangerous.
really if democracy can survive unregulated social media.
I think democracies are very challenged right now and have not proven they can move fast enough or big enough to deal with the challenges that we are facing. And to me, that is part of what this race, this election is all about. We'll go to only one source, and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda, and they're putting out disinformation. Our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So
hammered out of existence is what they're doing to InfoWars.
Wait, let him keep talking.
That's what he said. That they need the power to hammer the Gateway Pundit, Breitbart, hammer you out of existence. Notice hold on. Notice that he doesn't want to hammer CNN out of existence.
Correct.
He only wants to hammer Breitbart out of existence.
Or America. He's talking about America. Continue.
there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change. Now, obviously, there are some people in our country who are prepared to implement change in other ways. And
So
that's
you're
really
questioning
dangerous.
really if democracy can survive unregulated social media.
I think democracies are very challenged right now and have not proven they can move fast enough or big enough to deal with the challenges that we are facing. And to me, that is part of what this race, this election is all about. Will we break the fever in the United States?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Did you guys see he can't even speak freely himself? He talks in code, like saying if the Democrats don't win and they're creeping up on us, we're gonna lose what we've been trying to do, the new world order. He even censors himself.
And he's really not John F. Nothing. He's John F. and Kerry. He's not John F. Let me show you what fever. He's talked about breaking the fever, like Michelle talks about code. Let me tell you about fever. This is a real John F. Listen to this.
Responsibility, I welcome it. Very more fruitful life for all mankind. Will you join in that historic effort?
Can you hear it?
Mm-hmm.
He talks about a fire. He talks about a fever.
In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation.
Here, Jesse.
The energy, the faith,
Stop it.
the
Go hold
devotion,
it up.
which we,
The last 2 minutes.
in the long history of the world,
Right there. Right there.
only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion, which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Go ahead and stop, Lisa.
My fellow citizens of the world,
Hang on a
ask
Okay.
not what America.
Okay.
Did you notice the difference between an American and a non-American? That's American. He's talking about the fire that will glow. We still have that fire. We're the sons of John F. Kennedy. We're the brothers of Bobby Kennedy Jr. That fire still burns on. He called it the eternal flame. We are the eternal flame. John F. Kennedy said, break the fever. John F. Kennedy is the assassin of the Constitution. He is the assassin of freedom of speech. It comes from our own family. And it's our responsibility to keep the fire burning that John F. Kennedy talked about. He said that he believes that nobody there would trade time and place with anybody else to defend freedom in its hour of maximum danger. And that's what we have here. When our own American brothers have turned against the First Amendment. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? It's a disgrace. It's embarrassing. If I looked in the mirror, I would vomit if that was my face.
Okay, I think you said it all right there.
How could you be? I mean, it's a betrayal. Did John F. Kennedy die in vain? Think about it. Think about it. Let's say you're Jackie Kennedy. Let's say you're John F. Kennedy Jr. Your father gave everything. And did our brothers die in vain? Did your dad go to Vietnam in vain? And that's what we want to tell John F. Kerry. John F. Kerry, come home. Come home. Repent. Don't do that. Don't betray us with a kiss.
Yeah. Well,
That's it. The First Amendment's under attack. And yeah.
But we are, like you said, we are putting up a fight. Those who are fighting, they're scared of, because he said that fever, we got to shut it down.
Yeah. Break the fever, he called it.
yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? These people are dangerous. You're talking about, this is not abortion. This is the homicide of a nation. Because we are the First Amendment. America is the First Amendment. When he's talking about breaking that fever, oh my God, how do you break the fever that is the First Amendment?
Mm-hmm. You can't. And he never will. There'll always be somebody who will get in their way.
Yeah. And it's things like this that keeps it alive. I mean, there's more and more and more people speaking out. I mean, like you said, now with all the social media, the YouTubing, you're not going to keep people quiet.
Like you said, no.
Yeah. So do you have any, should we give any last comments before we shut it down?
Michelle, you got anything?
I've said
No.
enough.
Well, no, but we like to hear it. It's a Constitution. No, we'll just keep out there and keep doing what you're doing, Gilbert, Lisa, what we do. We all do our individual parts, and we keep that flame alive.
Yeah. And you know what? If somebody were to say, Jesse, your words are too harsh. Were my words too harsh for John F. Kerry?
I don't think they were harsh enough.
No.
Me too, because now we have to pray for our brother. We have to pray that John F. Kerry can see the error of his ways and come back. That should be our prayer. Our Father that art in heaven, please let John F. Kerry understand. Get it out of his heart to hate our country.
And you know what? There's something about and I guess as our generations get less and less educated, and I'm not talking about university or that type of thing. I mean, we've got a lot of kids that are graduating from high school that can hardly even read. But when you read the Constitution, like you were reading the First Amendment to us, it's not easy to understand. You really, really have to dig into it. And
you need the Federalist Papers with it, don't you? That's what I...
No, this is the easiest document to understand. This is what you understand. This is boring. This is where Michelle works. It's boring. It's the process of the Constitution. This is where the spirit comes to life. This is where YouTube is at. This is where Facebook is at. This is where picking up chicks is at. This is where baseball, freedom of, look at what it says. Abridging the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the peaceful people to peacefully assemble. That means to go to the park, walk your girlfriend to school. That's what we have in the United States. This is what they want to do away with. So to me, the Constitution is so simple. It's called Living 101.
I agree
when
with you.
Right, but
Sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
well, when you've gone through what we've had, it means something. We understand it when you go through it. And remember, the Constitution wasn't to control the federal government. It was for the people to know, not to let the government control them too.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm getting at is if it's not that it's easy for you, Jesse. You've got a brain like an elephant, I always say. But if it's not, go to a class and study it, learn it. You know, if you can't do it on your own, I mean, we've got a great organization here in town that's specifically what they do. You study the entire Constitution, you know, for a semester. And we did it when we first started getting involved, and it opened my eyes in a lot of ways. And they're constantly calling us back, hey, come and talk about your experience, because even though we had learned a little bit about it in high school, it was nothing like this class that we took. It did help us understand it. You got to remember, it was written 250 years ago. It's not, the English is a little different than we're used to. It's not as simple as you say. I mean, you really do need to study it.
Hey, Michelle's beating up everything back there, so we better shut it down.
Okay. Let us know what you think, guys. Give us thumbs up.
Share
Gilbert,
it.
thank you for joining us. Thank you for the videos. All right. Talk to you
Have a
guys
good
soon.
night.
Good night.